Has Coach DeBoer been criticized too much? Has he taken on too much blame since he's taken over after Nick Saban? Today we're getting into all of that. Let's go. First of all, Coach DeBoer has taken on too much criticism since he's came to Alabama. Now look, I agree with maybe criticizing him on certain stuff, being like the team not playing as physical, losing games that they shouldn't lose. But it's just, if you step back, just look at the overall team record, games he won, games he lost. Yes, they shouldn't have lost versus SFU. But then all of a sudden you see how they turn around the season. I just hate that we keep making it like this guy is a bad coach and he's just horrible. Like, nobody else was stepping in Nick Saban's shoes and being Nick Saban. First of all, like I said, I got some bullet points I want to hit. First of all, he took over after the greatest coach ever, in my opinion, the greatest coach ever. When Nick retired, 26 players entered the NCAA transfer portal. Key players like Caleb Downs, Isaiah Bond, Julian Sand. So when a coach retires, there's a 30-day window open up that players can leave. Like I said, you had 26 players leave all of a sudden, and then you get hired. Like I say, now you're on the fly. But I know it's Alabama, so people don't want to hear about criticism stuff. And then, like, just like another thing, you know, Alabama struggled to run the ball last year. I agree, horrible. But Alabama hasn't had a 1,000-yard rusher. I think it's been 5 years. So that's going back even in Nick Saban's tenure. Like, it's just the criticism is just getting ridiculous, guys. And like I said, it's like I would criticize Coach DeBoer when it's necessary. The SFU game last year, I was on his ass because I think the team wasn't prepared. It's certain times that, yes, we can criticize, but look, it just, like I said, it just gets too ridiculous. Look, Nick Saban, first year at Alabama, he was 7-6. Next year was 12-2, which, you know, that's a miraculous turnaround. But going 7-6, like I say, you just think about Coach DeBoer, first year, second year. First year, he got Jalen Milroe. Second year, Ty Simpson. So then you're switching quarterbacks. You don't have a quarterback. Like I said, I think even Ty Simpson, even though Ty Simpson played great last year, I don't think that's the quarterback that he envisions in his system. I don't think Ryan Grubb either. I think Austin Mack and Keelan Russell are quarterbacks, especially Keelan, is quarterbacks that fit the system that they want to play out. And then you got to realize you got to get your players in. Like, and, you know, like I say, I criticize Coach DeBoer because they, like I said, they lost to FSU. But look, Nick Saban, they lost to Louisiana Monroe. That's you talking about, when you talking about a horrible loss, because like I said, yes, FSU wasn't good last year, but I just think we getting like a little too ridiculous that Coach DeBoer now is just dog shit and he just trash. It's just getting ridiculous. Like, you know, one thing I'm gonna say, look, Stephen A., Paul Feinbaum, all these guys that really don't watch college football, I think, to tell the truth. Paul maybe a little bit. Stephen A. doesn't watch college football. He doesn't. We've seen him at NBA games, which is the sport he's supposed to cover, and he's asleep, and he's playing games on his phone. We've seen, like, come on now, let's stop. We seen last year, since Paul Feinbaum is just this expert, that he thought Arch Manning in Texas was just fun to run through college football. Arch was gonna win the Heisman. They was gonna just run through college football. That didn't happen. Now all of a sudden you criticizing Alabama. Then the way you talked about Alabama was like they was gonna fall off a cliff this year. Paul Feinbaum did a prediction on the schedule for Alabama this year, and he predicted them to be 9-3. You did all that talking shit. See, because they still don't want to say nothing too crazy. Because if Bama go 10-2, 11-1, then all of a sudden you can say, well, you know, I had them 9-3. No, you've been talking shit for a minute. And one of the biggest things I got to say, what team was, you know, dominated college football? Georgia. Georgia had a 33-game home winning streak. What team broke that winning streak? Alabama. Alabama's the ones who broke that win streak. Nobody else was going into Athens and beating Georgia but the Tide. We can admit this. I was there. Me and my homeboy was there. And nobody else was going in there doing it. No, nobody. That 33-game win streak would still been going today if Bama wasn't on the schedule and went down there and took care of business. You know, another thing, at the end of the year, guys, there's only one team that wins a championship. So last year, it was Indiana and Kurt Cinetti. So I don't care if you're talking about Kirby last year, which I still think is the best coach, or Sark, Marcus Freeman, Lane Kiffin, and people just love Lane, but Lane ain't never won shit, to tell the truth. But okay, you know, he was the offensive coordinator at Bama, but like I say, we all know who was the head coach. But Lane hasn't never been head of a program and they won a championship. Like, we gotta admit, but for some reason though, Lane Kiffin is held to this high regard for a lot of people. But Coach DeBoer now is trash. When he actually took a team, Washington, to the playoffs. And then, you know, another thing, guys, we gotta stop, even Bama fans, you gotta realize this is a different time in college football with the NIL deals, the transfer portals. It's like, I don't know what the fuck y'all be thinking. Like, a lot of these teams, like I said, Texas, if Sarkisian don't win, this is the coach you need to be talking about. They are spending every dime they have in the portal. LSU spending up to $40 million in the portal. But for some reason, Alabama, like I say, 13 in the AP rankings, and like I say, Coach DeBoer just trash. That's why I like Coach DeBoer. When a couple weeks ago, they asked him, because I know the people they was talking about, you know, the comments Stephen A. and Paul Feinberg made, they was like, Coach DeBoer, do you see any of the stuff and stuff? All he said, you know, we see it all. We see it all. So he's just saying, look, we got to play everything out on the field, and then that'll take care of his business. And like I said, man, I will criticize Coach DeBoer. I have criticized Coach DeBoer. I said the run game has to improve. The team has to be more physical. But we got to give Coach DeBoer credit when credit is deserved. He beat Georgia 2 times. Like, Nick Saban's gone. And like I say, Coach DeBoer beat Georgia 2 times. The guy Kirby Smart, that mostly everybody would say is the best coach in college football. Like I said, went into Georgia and snapped a 33-game win streak when Bama was ranked, Bama ranked like 15, 17 at the time. Because, you know, they lost to FSU. Like I say, it's just, you know, you can look and see when a coach is good. I don't know if Coach DeBoer will ever win a championship at Alabama, but one thing I do know, he's a good coach. And for people who wanted, and then another coach who haven't won, Dan Lanning. But for people who wanted Dan Lanning, Sark, Lane Kiffin, Marcus Freeman, whatever coach you named that you wanted, Kurt Cinetti. One thing about it, look, only one team can win a championship at the end of the year, and none of these guys have won. Dan Lanning and Oregon, they're spending all the money in the world, all the money, and they haven't won. They got blew out versus Indiana. Same way Alabama last year got blew out. But then Alabama this year ranked 13th. Alabama don't get no credit for beating an Oklahoma team that people have, you know, a lot of expectations this year. But Alabama was the team that knocked them out the playoffs. After being down 17-0, coming back when I think it might have ended 34-24, you know, somewhere around there. But like I said, it's just funny because one thing about the people who the analysts and stuff, people put narratives out there and they spin it how they want to spin it. But I just wanted to come on here today just to say Coach DeBoer is a good coach. And like I say, we need to chill. Like I say, yes, criticize him when it's necessary. If Alabama is playing bad when they playing certain people, criticize them. You know, like I said, the FSU game, I'm trying to think of somebody else. Even the SEC championship didn't play good there. Like, you can criticize a coach, but I think when we start acting like Coach DeBoer just is horrible, we gotta stop. We gotta stop. Because like I said, this team has been like up here. And then, like I said, you got to think about it. You lost a lot of talent that you had to replace quickly. like I said, it is what it is. You know, Coach DeBoer knew when he took over this job, he knew the pressure he was under and what would happen. So, like I said, I just think, you know, Bama fans, because I know there's a lot of Bama fans, stop shitting on Coach DeBoer. Nobody was going to be Nick Saban after Nick Saban. And I say, not even if they a great coach. Because look at this. Kurt Sinetti with Indiana. What y'all think he going 16-0 this year again? No, he is not. Like I say, last year was a magical year, great. But college football now, guys, I don't know when the next time it will be a team that just is dominant and running through college football. I don't know. Like I said, we'll see. But anyways, guys, like I said, I just want to come on here, just give my real spiel about that. But like, comment, subscribe, share. Appreciate y'all. Roll Tide.